Walking in the room, mic in hand, something's about to boom. Tell me what you gotta say. Tell me, make it count today. Big Tony speaks, and everybody listens. Big Tony speaks, his voice just keeps on lifting. When Tony talks, you know you gotta hear him. Big Tony speaks. Sit right down, let me hear your voice. Share your thoughts, Tony gives you choice. Tell me what you gotta say. Tell me, make it count today. You always speak, Big Tony speaks, and everybody listens. Big Tony speaks, his voice just keeps on lifting. When Tony talks, you know you gotta hear him. Big Tony speaks. Big Tony speaks. He got something to say every single day. He's got something to say. Come on out and play. Big Tony speaks, and everybody listens. Big Tony speaks, his voice just keeps on lifting. When Tony talks, you know you gotta hear him. Big Tony speaks. Big Tony speaks. Big Tony. Big Tony speaks. Here comes.
Welcome back to Big Tony Speaks. I'm Big Tony, your professional interpreter of the apocalypse. Your tour guide through the abandoned amusement park that used to be the human civilization. And apparently the only man on the internet still asking the question, who gave these people permission to leave the house? Oh my Lord. August of 2026, just looked at every other month on the calendar and said, yeah, that's cute. Watch this. We got 13 stories today. 13. That's not a news episode. That's a psychological endurance test. Yeah, this month we got drunk cruise passengers launching domestic warfare. A guy dressed like Chucky terrorizing Philadelphia. Enough nightmare material to fill a digital hard drive the size of Delaware. A man apparently deciding the storage unit was an acceptable place to conduct the worst possible version of family housekeeping. We have Costco shoppers forming a human defensive line. We have haute couture made by a company called Fecal Matter. We have lawn spikes, a corpse in a freezer, artificial intelligence destroying a farmer's crops, termites eating a man's life savings, lightning striking a prison, and then we have a sex toy accidentally turning Washington, D.C. into a bomb disposal training exercise. At this point, I don't report the news. I just stand outside the burning building with a microphone and ask, how did we get here? So buckle up, lock your freezer, check your lawn. Do not blindly trust your chatbot. And if you're going to Costco, watch the jewelry aisle. Let's go. Let's begin with one of humanity's greatest inventions, the cruise ship. Of course. A floating city where thousands of people voluntarily board a giant metal vessel surrender control of their transportation, eat approximately 11 pounds of shrimp per day, and convince themselves that unlimited soft serve is somehow a personality trait. It's supposed to be relaxing, ocean breeze, sunshine, pool, a buffet. One of my favorites. Tiny little towel animals sitting on your bed. Everybody's happy until two people decide, you know what this vacation needs? A street fight. Yeah, enter Gannon Jaycox, 29 years old, and Brooklyn Hicks, 28 years old. These two apparently got drunk and began arguing at a volume normally reserved for air raid sirens. Um, nearly, well, I won't say that. A nearby family politely asked them to quiet them down. That's where a normal human being would normally say, I'm sorry, or maybe my bad, you know, possibly didn't realize how loud we were. These two apparently interpreted the request as you have challenged the honor of our bloodline. They kick in the cabin door on a cruise ship. The door. Imagine you're lying in bed on vacation, half asleep, dreaming about tomorrow's breakfast buffet, when suddenly your door gets kicked in. You're thinking, is this an emergency? No. It's two drunk people who apparently decided your family vacation needed a surprise appearance by World Wrestling Entertainment Maritime Division. Jaycox allegedly starts swinging at the two adults and a 9-year-old child. A 9-year-old. Sir, that is not a fight. That's a customer service complaint with felony DLC. And Hicks is allegedly in there just throwing punches like she's trying to swat invisible bees. At some point, you just got to stop and ask, what was the objective? Was there a mission briefing? Okay, team, we've reached the cabin. Primary target, sleeping family. Secondary target, furniture. Tertiary target, everyone's remaining faith in humanity. The, the sheriff later described it as a quote, ridiculous escapade. Ridiculous escapade. That's the polite law enforcement phrase for I have worked in public safety for years. I cannot believe I'm typing this sentence. I got a new cruise policy. Every passenger gets one foam bath, one noise complaint, one complimentary counseling session, and a little card that says, before you start a fight on this vessel, remember, there is nowhere to run. You're on a boat. Where are you going? You're not storming off. You're not catching an Uber. You're not walking home. You're floating in the Atlantic with 4,000 people who just watched you turn a cabin into a UFC octagon. And the buffet is still open. Imagine being kicked off a cruise because you attacked somebody and then having to explain it to the shuttle driver. What happened? Well, I got into a fight. With whom? A 9-year-old. Sir, I'm going to need you to get back on the boat and reconsider your entire existence. Big Tony's new cruise rule. If you start a fight on a cruise ship, you don't get arrested immediately. First, they make you spend 48 hours in the children's splash zone while a 17-piece mariachi band follows you around playing songs about personal responsibility. But Darwin worked the buffet line. The ocean is deep for a reason. In Philadelphia, 5:18 in the morning. The most normal people at 5:18 a.m. are either asleep, working, regretting something they did the night before, or staring into the refrigerator, trying to remember why they opened it. Philadelphia had other plans because here comes a man wearing a full Chucky doll Halloween costume. And apparently, he wasn't just walking around. No, no, no. He was running around City Hall chasing people, asking joggers if they're, quote, ready to die at 5 in the morning. That's not a greeting. That's an unsolicited audition for a horror movie. Imagine you're jogging before work. You're wearing your headphones, you got your little water bottle. You're trying to improve your cardiovascular health. Then you hear, "Are you ready to die?" You turn around, full size, coming at you. At that point, your Fitbit shouldn't even register your heart rate. It should simply display good luck. One woman reportedly kicked him directly in the chest. I don't know her name, I don't know her background, but I want her on the Supreme Court because that woman looked at a 6 foot nightmare doll and apparently said, "Yeah, not before my coffee." Yeah, that's leadership. Another person was injured trying to get away. At least 6 people were reportedly targeted during the spree, and this guy was filming it because, of course, he was. Because, apparently, we're now living in a civilization where terrifying strangers before breakfast is considered content. We've reached the point where some people don't ask, "Is this a good idea?" They ask, "Will this get views?" That's the difference between civilization and whatever this is that we're living in. Imagine being the police officer who gets the call. "Officer, we've got a man dressed as Chucky chasing people around City Hall." There's a pause. "Is it actually Chucky?" "Well, no." "Okay, good. It's a guy in a Chucky mask." Somehow that's worked. Because real Chucky has an excuse. He's a supernatural homicidal doll. This guy apparently just woke up and chose the most legally complicated Halloween costume possible. Somewhere in Hollywood, a producer is watching the footage thinking, "Wait a minute, we didn't authorize this." Meanwhile, Philadelphia is like, "Yeah, that's Tuesday." And imagine the joggers. Yeah. You wake up at 5 a.m. because you want to get healthy. By 5:20, you've discovered that your morning cardio now includes survival training. Yeah, that'll motivate you. You don't need a fitness tracker anymore. You need a witness protection program. And because apparently Philadelphia decided one horror story wasn't enough, we're going to stay in Philly. Investigators examining Eugene Horish, yeah, say that 5 5 5. Eugene Horish, digital life reportedly uncovered approximately 600,000 images, around 70,000 videos, and disturbing writing. 600,000 images. That's not a hard drive, that's an archaeological site. You don't scroll through that. You send in a research team wearing helmets. You give them sandwiches. You tell them, call us when you've reached page 40,000. And then investigators reportedly uncovered deeply disturbing material connected to two women who had been missing: Maribel Fresses, Gabriela Amaranda. Evidence reportedly indicated they were dead while their bodies remained missing. Then investigators encountered material so disturbing that describing it in detail isn't necessary. And frankly, that's where the comedy needs to get out of the way, because there are stories. There are stories where you can joke about stupidity. There are stories where you could joke about the absurdity of it. And then there are stories where the facts themselves are so horrifying that the only appropriate response, what the heck is wrong with these people? Investigators reportedly found references to chemicals, a 55-gallon drum, hidden compartments, and writings invoking Ted Bundy. At that point, you're not investigating someone's weird internet history. You're investigating a human being who appears to have spent years building an entire private horror universe. The really chilling part is the sheer volume: 600,000 images, 70,000 videos. That's not a bad weekend. That's not, I need to clean out my computer. That's a digital landfill. Your computer has 670,000 files, and your defense begins with, well, technically, you've already lost the room. Imagine being the forensic technician assigned to process that equipment. The boss says, we need you to review the hard drive. You look at the file. How many? All of them. How long? Don't ask. At some point, you need to take the hard drive outside, put it on the ground, and let the FBI drone team salute it before it gets sealed into evidence. This isn't entertainment. This isn't edgy internet nonsense. It's a horrifying reminder that technology doesn't create evil, but it can give evil an enormous filing cabinet. Somewhere in the middle of all that digital darkness, investigators reportedly found evidence that may help to explain what happened to people who had been missing. That's the part that matters, because behind every headline is an actual person. And remember, all the stories that I talk about on my show, they're all real stories. This is reality. An actual family. People who spent years wondering where someone they loved had gone. So, yes, humanity remains deeply weird. Sometimes the weirdness isn't funny. Sometimes it's just a giant flashing sign that says we need to do better. And now we're moving on before I lose what little faith I have left in the species. Kansas City area, Justin Ray, 35, is reportedly found living in a storage unit with his two young daughters. Inside that nightmare scenario, authorities reportedly discovered the dismembered remains of his wife, Jessica Montero. She had recently given birth in a motel. Instead of seeking help, he reportedly admitted to horrific acts involving her remains and photographs involving the children. He reportedly said he was afraid the children would be taken away. There's no punchline here that there isn't. Um, you can make jokes about stupidity. You can make jokes about the bizarre behavior. You can make jokes about a guy losing $5,000 to termites, but this is where comedy gets told to sit down and shut up. Because there are moments when the absurdity of a story doesn't make it funny. It makes it incomprehensible. A storage unit is supposed to contain old furniture, Christmas decorations, a broken treadmill, maybe 16 boxes labeled important. Nobody knows what's inside them, but it's not this. Not human remains, not children trapped inside an environment that should never have existed. And the fact that children were involved makes this especially disturbing. Whatever circumstances led to this, the children were the ones who had absolutely no control over any of it. They didn't choose the motel. They didn't choose the storage unit. They didn't choose the horror surrounding them. They were just children. So I'm not going to turn this one into a comedy routine. I'm going to say something much simpler. If you're overwhelmed, frightened, desperate, or convinced asking for help will destroy your life, ask for help anyway. Call somebody, tell somebody, walk into a police station, walk into a hospital, call a friend, tell a stranger, whatever you have to do, because there is no problem so bad that turning it into something unimaginably worse is going to be the solution. This isn't funny, it's tragic. Sometimes the best thing a comedy show can do is recognize the difference. And remember, all these stories that I highlight on my show are absolutely real. They're taken from the real news. Let's move on. Costco. Let's cleanse the emotional palate with something completely normal. So it's Costco, the happiest place on earth if your definition of happiness is I would like to purchase 47 rolls of toilet paper and enough cheese to survive a siege. Greenville, South Carolina, Costco, the temple of bulk purchasing, the cathedral of rotisserie chicken, the Vatican of free samples. You walk in for some battery. You walk out with a kayak, a television, a pallet of sparkling water, a six-pack of muffins the size of newborn infants, and absolutely no memory of why you came in. But apparently, on this particular day, Jose Alejandro Giraldo, 24 years old, allegedly walked into the store armed with a machete and a pickaxe. starts smashing jewelry cases inside Costco. Sir, you have chosen the wrong battlefield. You don't attack Costco. Costco has members, and Costco members have already waited in line for 40 minutes. Those people are emotionally prepared for combat. One shopper sees a guy with a machete and thinks, I did not drive 20 minutes for nothing. Customers reportedly tackled him and held him until police arrived. A citizen's arrest, if you will. A Costco citizen's arrest. That's different. Because you know shoppers weren't communicating verbally. They were using warehouse club telepathy. One guy points, another guy nods, third guy grabs a shopping cart. And suddenly you've got Avengers bulk membership. Imagine the Costco employee announcement. Attention shoppers, we have a security situation in aisle 7. Then somebody whispers, get the Kirkland guys. Which ones? All of them. Within 30 seconds, 12 men wearing cargo shorts and New Balance shoes have formed a defensive perimeter around the rotisserie chicken. Because priorities. You know, the jewelry can wait, the chickens cannot. Somewhere, Costco manager is rewriting the employee handbook. In the event of a machete attack, remain calm, secure the food court, and form a human wall around the $1.50 hot dog. And here's the amazing thing about Costco shoppers. They don't look like an army. They look like people who have coupons. That's exactly what makes them dangerous. You underestimate a man holding a membership card. That card says, I have paid an annual fee to be here. He is emotionally invested. You don't mess with that man. America may not be okay, but apparently the bulk discount is strong enough to hold the line. Now we enter the fashion world. A magical kingdom where clothing can cost more than a car, and nobody is allowed to ask why. Because the answer is usually it's fashion. Zendaya, Kylie Jenner, Demi Moore, all associated with a fashion brand that is literally named Fecal Matter. That's right, Fecal Matter. Not Maison de something or Atelier whatever. Not House of Elegance. Fecal Matter. The name. Imagine walking into a clothing store. What are you wearing? Fecal Matter. Is that the brand? No, I'm just having a really difficult day. When Zendaya's stylist was reportedly asked what she was wearing, the answer was essentially fecal matter. No explanation, no linguistic escape hatch, no, it's French. No, it's inspired by the human condition. No, it's actually pronounced differently. No, fecal matter. We're living in a world where somebody looked at the fashion industry and thought, you know what we're missing? Poop branding. And here's where I have a question. Who is sitting in the marketing meeting? Because I want to hear that. Okay, guys, I've got the new name. What is it? Fecal matter. Thoughts? Someone in the back slowly raises their hand. I think that's disgusting. Excellent. We'll use that. And somehow the name gets approved. That's confidence. That's conviction. That's a marketing department that has stared into the abyss and says, put it on a hoodie. At this point, the apocalypse doesn't arrive with sirens. It arrives wearing designer pants and carrying a $900 handbag. We've gone from what's the latest trend to, is that literally supposed to look like feces? The answer is yes. We have reached peak civilization. Somewhere, a medieval peasant is looking down from heaven thinking, you guys invented electricity. And this is what you did with it? Future is brown. The runway is steaming, and I'm buying stock in air fresheners. Minnesota. Kyle James Steffen, 39 years old. Neighborhood kids keep riding their bikes across his lawn. I've got a confession. I understand being annoyed by people cutting across your lawn. You work hard on that lawn. You mow it, you water it, you fertilize it. You stand there at 7:30 in the morning staring at individual blades of grass like a Roman emperor inspecting his troops. Then some kid rides across it on a Huffy. You're thinking, I swear to God, but there are solutions. Put up a fence, a gate, put up a sign, motion activated sprinklers. Maybe talk to their parents. Maybe yell, get off my lawn. That's a classic. But apparently, Kyle James Steffen chose another strategy. He allegedly planted approximately 43-inch spikes. That's 43-inch spikes in the grass. 43-inch spikes. Sir, not lawn maintenance. That's Home Alone 7, the HOA Strikes Back. You've transformed your yard into a medieval defense perimeter. What was the plan? Were you expecting Mongol invaders? A Viking raid, maybe? The Roman Empire? No, it's Kyle from down the street riding a bicycle, carrying a juice box. Your lawn doesn't need a moat. Imagine being a kid. You see a lawn, you think, shortcut. Then, clang, suddenly you're discovering medieval engineering. And that's the thing about spikes. They don't know who the enemy is. They don't discriminate. Dog, spike. Kid, spike. Delivery driver, spike. Amazon package. Well, technically the package doesn't have feet, but let's give it a minute. Grandma, congratulations, Grandma. You have breached the perimeter. Sir, just buy a fence or put up a sign. Heck, put up an enormous inflatable dinosaur that says, go away. That's still better than turning your yard into the opening level of a video game called Lawsuit, the Lawning. Imagine explaining it to a police officer. Sir, why did you install 40 spikes? Kids were riding through my grass. The officer just stares. Have you considered grass? That's the problem. No, sir. I think the problem is the medieval battlefield you've constructed around it. Congratulations, Kyle. You've achieved something extraordinary. You've made a suburban lawn more hostile than a military installation. Somewhere, there's an HOA president looking at those spikes and whispering, finally, someone with vision. Now we go to Juneau, Alaska. Juneau, Alaska. Family is cleaning out the home of a deceased relative. It's a normal sentence. We've all done this. Open drawers, find old photographs. You find mysterious keys nobody can identify. You find a receipt from 1987. You find 17 containers of screws. And eventually, you get to the outbuilding. There's a locked deep freeze. You open it and discover a body. That's when the phrase, what's in the freezer, becomes the most terrifying sentence in the English language. The man would reportedly be in his 70s today. There had apparently been no missing persons reports, and the remains may have been there for years. Years! Imagine finding something like that while you're cleaning out a house. You don't scream, you don't run, you simply close the freezer, walk back into the house, sit down, look at everybody, say, we're moving. Someone says, what about the furniture? Burn it. What about the family photos? Take the photos. What about the freezer? The freezer is no longer part of the family. Alaska is already a place where you expect it to be, shall we say, unusual. It's got enormous wilderness, extreme weather, wildlife that looks at your automobile like it might be lunch. But now we're adding mystery freezer bodies. Come to Alaska, see the northern lights, go fishing, hike through breathtaking wilderness. Whatever you do, don't open the second freezer. Some realtor somewhere is already preparing the listing. Beautiful 3-bedroom property, quiet neighborhood, great mountain view, large detached outbuilding, excellent storage. Then in tiny, tiny print, buyer assumes responsibility for asking no further questions. And imagine being the person who eventually has to inventory the place. Okay, we've got furniture, tools, Christmas decorations, old magazines, deep freezer. Anything inside? Let's put that one on the list for tomorrow. Okay. Let's move to China. Farmer decides to ask a AI chatbot for advice about weed killing. Now, this is where the future gets beautiful. For decades, farmers relied on experienced agricultural experts product labels, agronomists, years of accumulated knowledge. And now, hey, robot, how do I kill these weeds? The robot answers. The farmer follows the advice. And approximately 25 acres of crops are destroyed. 25 acres. That is not a weed problem. That's a landscaping event. You didn't kill the weeds. You introduced the concept of former farm. Imagine walking out the next morning. Your crops are dead. Your field looks like the moon. You're standing there holding your phone. But the chatbot said that's the sentence that's going to define the 21st century. But the chatbot said. But the chatbot said this was healthy. But the chatbot said this was legal. But the chatbot said I could assemble it without reading the manual. But the chatbot said my ex was probably a narcissist. At some point, folks, some point, the robot is not your grandma. It doesn't know your field. It doesn't know your soil. It doesn't know your weather. It doesn't know what you sprayed last Tuesday. It knows how to generate an answer. Sometimes an answer that sounds like it was written by a Harvard professor. For real. Sometimes an answer that belongs in the trash beside the broken toaster. 25 acres, y'all, gone. That's an expensive autocomplete. Very expensive. Somewhere the farmer is standing there thinking, I trusted artificial intelligence. And the weeds are standing behind him like, we told you this was a bad idea. I can already hear corporate disclaimer. AI generated agriculture advice should not be interpreted as professional agricultural advice. The translation here would be, please don't let the robot murder your farm. Honestly, that's probably going on a sticker soon. Chatbot may contain traces of catastrophic farm failure. The future is here, folks. It has a smartphone, it has Wi-Fi, and apparently it has no idea what the hell it's doing with Roundup. Okay, let's travel to India. India. A man sells a property. He gets approximately $5,000. $5,000. Not exactly billionaire money, but enough to matter. So he decides to hide. Where, you might ask? In the ground. Because apparently somebody watched too many pirate movies. You know the scene. You know, cartoon pirate digs a hole, drops the treasure in, marks the location, and walks away. Except this guy apparently forgot where he put it. That's right, yeah. He buried his money and then lost the map. There's a financial lesson here. Don't become your own bank if you also suffer from short-term memory loss. Then the monsoon arrives, and the termites discover the world's greatest buffet. All you can eat cash. Termites don't care about inflation. They don't care about interest rates. They don't care about the stock market. They looked at those banknotes and said, lunch. Imagine finding your money after all that. You dig up the hiding place, open up the container, and instead of $5,000, you discover $17.43 worth of termite confetti. You just stand there, a grown man looking at shredded currency. Somewhere in the dirt, millions of tiny insects are celebrating their financial independence. Termite 1. Boss, what are we eating tonight? Termite 2. Currency. American, Indian. Excellent. Expanding the portfolio. These bugs have no respect for money. You could bury gold. They'll ignore it. You could bury diamonds. Whatever. But cash, that's carved. And the lesson is brutally simple. The only things that love your money more than you do are the government, your ex, and apparently termites. A financial advisor would say, diversify your portfolio. A termite would say, diversify your cellulose. Put the money in a bank. Use a safe. Use literally any financial product invented after the invention of the shovel, because your investment strategy involves, number 1, dig a hole. Number 2, forget hole. Number 3, wait for monsoon. And number 4, feed the insects. You've accidentally opened a restaurant and your customers don't tip. Now, we go to an unnamed correctional facility, unnamed because I don't want to get sued. 16 prisoners are hospitalized after lightning strikes the facility. 16. And I have to admit, nature has timing, because imagine being incarcerated and suddenly the sky itself gets involved. You're sitting there thinking, okay, I've made some mistakes. Then, boom, lightning. And you're like, apparently we're escalating. Even Mother Nature looked at the prison roster and said, let's see what happens if I press this button. Somewhere a prisoner is lying there thinking, can I appeal this? The judge, what happened? I got struck by lightning. Denied. Why? Because technically you were already indoors. Imagine being a guard. You're checking the cell block, everything is normal. Then lightning hits. 16 people need medical attention. You don't even know what to write in the incident report. Cause of incident. Atmosphere. Weapon used. Cloud. Suspect. God's electrical system. Escape attempt? No. Weather event. Extremely aggressive. And here's the funniest part. People always joke about prison escape plan. Tunnel, rope, helicopter, disguise, bribery. But apparently the most effective method is wait for the sky to get pissed off. What's your escape plan? Lightning. That doesn't get you out. Didn't say it was a good plan. Mother Nature basically walked into the prison and said, everybody get down. And somewhere the warden is now updating the emergency manual in the the event of severe weather, seek shelter. Prisoner. Where? Warden. Inside. Prisoner. We're already inside. Warden. Then you're doing great. Even the universe is looking at 2026 and saying, I'm running out of ways to get your attention. So now we come to Washington, D.C., Henleytown, Wisconsin Avenue. Wednesday morning, August 12th, 2026. It's 7 a.m. Rush hour is just starting to boil. Commuters are already late. Coffee is already cold. The only thing standing between them and another soul crushing day in the nation's capital is a blue and black electronic device with wires hanging out like it's auditioning for a low budget spy movie. A mystery person walks up to a firefighter behind engine 20, casually drops his suspicious gadget near the firehouse, some reports say right in the trash, and vanishes into the morning mist like a horny ninja. Exposed wires, unknown origin. Looks like it could either charge your phone or end democracy. Cue the full-on circus. Metropolitan Police Department's explosive ordnance disposal unit rolls up. The K9 unit rolls up. The bomb squad puts on the big protective suits that make them look like astronauts who failed the physical. Wisconsin Avenue between 40th and Warren gets shut down in both directions. Side streets blocked. Traffic turns into a parking lot of pure rage. For nearly 2 hours, the most powerful city on earth is held hostage by what police would later clinically describe as an electronic sex portable pump device. That's a direct quote. Social media did the rest, of course. Within minutes, the internet identified it as the Zoho Blowbot, a plug-in automatic stroker that retails for somewhere between $3 and $350. That's right, a $350 robotic hand job machine just caused more traffic disruption than most actual protests. Somewhere, a bomb technician in a full blast suit is carefully approaching the device, heart pounding, thinking about his kids, his pension, his last meal, only to realize he's risking his life for a gadget whose entire job is to make lonely men feel less lonely. K9 dog sniffed it, looked at its handler like, "Sir, I did not sign up for this," and is now in mandatory therapy and refuses to make eye contact with any human under the age of 40. Commuters who sat in that gridlock for 2 hours will tell their grandchildren, "Yeah, I was there that day in Washington, D.C. The day Washington, D.C. almost went to DEFCON 1 over a sex toy." Firefighter who got handed a device is never living this down at the station. The person who dumped it is currently somewhere Googling, quote, how to disappear forever after leaving your blowbot at a firehouse. And the best part, no injuries, no explosion, just the collective psychic damage of an entire city realizing that in 2026, the most dangerous thing on Wisconsin Avenue wasn't terrorism. It was someone's abandoned me time machine with the wire still hanging out like it had a rough night and needed to be put down humanely. Big Tony's official recommendation: next time you break up with your sex toy, just throw it in the regular trash can like a civilized adult, or or better yet, donate it somewhere there's a lonely bomb technician who could use a win. And now we get to the last story. A park worker charged after a 10-year-old girl loses her fingers in a fireworks accident. And I'm not going to make this funny because sometimes there's no joke. There's no clever analogy. There's no punchline hiding behind the next sentence. It's just a child who was hurt. A family who has to live with something that happened in an instant. And a reminder that fireworks aren't toys, they're explosives. They can be beautiful, yes. They can be spectacular. But they don't care whether you're 10 years old, 40 years old, experienced, inexperienced, distracted, confident, or having the best day of your life. One bad decision can change everything. So for this one, Big Tony is shutting up for a minute. No punchline, no roast, just this. Be careful. Watch your kids. Follow the instructions. Don't improvise with explosives. Don't assume that something is safe just because you've done it before without getting hurt. The universe already has enough material this month, believe me. We don't need to give it any more. And that, my friends, is August so far in 2026. 13 stories, 13. At this point, I'm not sure whether we're living through the collapse of civilization or the world's longest writers' room meeting. Got drunk people turning cruise ships into floating UFC events. A guy dressed like Chucky terrorizing Philadelphia before breakfast. A digital horror story so disturbing that even the internet needs therapy. A storage unit tragedy where comedy simply isn't appropriate. Costco shoppers forming the bulk membership Avengers, apparently. Fashion brands named fecal matter, neighborhood lawns becoming medieval fortresses, bodies turning up in freezers, artificial intelligence accidentally becoming a farm destroying agricultural consultant, termites eating a man's money, lightning striking prisoners, and a certain abandoned electronic device that managed to turn Washington, D.C. into the most awkward bomb scare in recent memory. This is where we're at, yo. This is civilization. We invented the wheel. We invented electricity. We invented antibiotics. We went to the moon. We built artificial intelligence. And then somebody apparently decided, let's put spikes in the lawn. We're done. Pack it up. Aliens are going to land tomorrow. Look around for 5 minutes and immediately file for asylum. What's wrong with humanity? Answer: everything. So I'm Big Tony. This is Big Tony Speaks. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because apparently the world has decided to provide enough material to keep this show running until the heat death of the universe. Stay strange, stay loud, check your lawn for spikes, check your freezer before you put anything in it. Don't let your chatbot destroy your farm. Don't bury your money where termites can get it. Don't fight children on cruise ships. Don't attack Costco unless you have a death wish and absolutely no understanding of warehouse club psychology. And if you see a guy in a Chucky mask at 5:18 in the morning, run. Not because he's necessarily dangerous, because you're in Philadelphia at 5:18 in the morning. You probably should be running anyway. I'm Big Tony. This has been Big Tony Speaks. The world is completely insane. I'm just here to document the evidence. Now, go outside, look around, and remember, we're the smart species, apparently.